is Paul Swartz. I'm 5 foot tall. I'm a broker with Sutton Group Old Mill Realty. I've been in the business since 1978, which is over 35 years. I'm 65 years old this November. Then I cover the Beatles. Gotta look at love as two things. As far as I go, okay, being short, you have to look at it from a relationship point of view, and then the physical part of it, you have to separate. You know, you have to. That's another compartment, because you're not going to get them in the same place, right? You're going to get them in a different place. You know, it's unfortunate. The other place you got to pay for, but you know, a lot of my married buddies say they're paying anyway. You know, so you know, the relationships I had when I was younger, probably the dances at the high school where, you know, you ask 10 women to dance and 10 say, I've got a headache.
Absolutely. There's certain times in our lives where things are more difficult, particularly in high school, where everybody's worried about what they look like and how they're going to be perceived. Yeah. The nice thing about it is that as we mature, so do everyone else around us. Yeah. And they see that as not as much of an issue. I'm Alan Redford, and I'm 3 feet 10 inches tall. I am the president of the Little People of Canada. I'm also the vice president of the Little People of Ontario. My profession is an investment advisor with a bank-owned firm. We're in two different businesses. You're in stocks and I'm in real estate. In real estate, or in a lot of other things, it's a visual. They're looking at a realtor, and it's just a different. My buddy that's in insurance is treated entirely different. Yeah. So it's a tangible versus an intangible.
And I think if you're learning and it's all about like getting respect, being listened to, and trying to understand that just because you're short, you know, you're different. You're not deficient. I think they value what you've got to give more than they do. Real estate is very, very visual, where they think someone is taller is actually smarter.
I suppose, but I think the trick is it's all in the what you exude, what the attitude that you have. Mm-hmm. Perhaps it is a little more difficult to do, but you know what? I don't know that because I don't know any different.
No.
So. When I'm doing stuff, I'm just going to go for it.
Yes. Well, I don't let it bother me, even though I'm aware of it. You know, I don't let it. I mean, I carry right on, and I do my own, my own thing. You know.
Well, you say that, and yet it seems very inherent in what you're saying that everything that you've talked about has always been about being short. I rarely, if ever, talk about my being short. And when I speak with my friends, they meet me right off the bat and they go, oh yeah, he's short. But after a while, they don't even remember, they don't recall, it's not even an issue, they don't talk about it. And in context, when I'm not around, unless it's a matter of me reaching something or something like that, it's not even in their imagination. Yeah. So outside, people aren't looking at it quite as much as perhaps you are inside. So if you stand up, I mean, you're still significantly taller than I am.
Yes.
You have advantages over me. You can likely get into a car without any modifications and drive it.
No.
You can reach pretty much anywhere. I mean, sure, there are top shelves on the grocery store, of which I have to wait for somebody to come by and say, excuse me, can you reach me?
I've done that before.
There you go, right? Exactly. And there's all these little things that we change in our lives so that we can accommodate it for a much taller world. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that we can't cope within that world.
I know. I combat loneliness by putting things in place. You know what I mean? Like the church, the music, my real estate. So, you know, I've got a lot of people involvement. If you don't have a lot of people involvement, then you can be very, single, you can be very lonely. And it doesn't have to be single short, it can be single tall, it can be single divorce, whatever. half of the people out there aren't married, and they're living alone. Being short just puts me in that group that has to look other places. They've got to be. They just can't go home at night. Like how many cold showers do you want to take? So, and also the second thing is that I'm a very passionate person on those women being protected.
I certainly think that no matter what profession you're in, that isn't hurting anybody.
Yes.
It certainly they should be protected.
The beauty about the business is you go and talk to somebody, right, and you go and visit the lady, right, or the lady comes and sees you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care what you look like.
No.
You know what I mean? You don't have to stand at the corner of Royal York and Bloor and put a sign up. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to go through the whole, thing of sitting in a bar and, you know what I mean? And this whole thing, well, I spent $150. Am I going to get anything? You know what I mean? Like, because that's really why I'm spending the $150.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because many escorts that I know often say that the younger, really good-looking kind of guys are the worst clients because they're cocky and disrespectful.
Yes. Yeah, the ones the other side of the coin would be the best, most respectful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jean McDonald. I'm the executive director here at Maggie's, Toronto Sex Workers Action Project. Maggie's is an organization that's run by and for sex workers. We're the oldest running sex worker-led organization in Canada, and we do a lot of harm reduction work, provide condoms, needles, stem kits, as well as provide a space of community for sex workers. I think you're right that there is a health part of it, a therapeutic aspect for a lot of clients. Human touch, to be touched, is very special. And I do think, for many people, it's a basic human need.
Yeah.
And I think that's, a very beautiful thing. And while you're talking about, someone being able to be intuitive and caring, that there's a lot of beauty, I think, in that, even just being held by someone, made to feel special, and, like a sexual being, to be understood as a sexual being, and to be able to have sexual experiences, I think is about, for many people, it helps them be a whole person.
Yeah,
if I think of myself and my own sexuality, if that had to be taken away from me, then that would be pretty awful, right?
The public doesn't really understand that it's a separate industry unto its own. People want to be there. It's their business, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think that's why we support decriminalization here at Maggie's, because we feel that that's the best way to support people in this job, right? Mm-hmm. We, as sex workers need labor protections. They need legal rights. Yeah. They need access to health and safety standards in their places of employment. It would be great if we could, if sex workers could unionize. These are the kind of labor protections
I'd love to see that.
that sex workers would find actually useful in their life. Mm-hmm. I think it was interesting when you pointed out, why has it kind of, sex work, why has it become sort of this, seen as this negative industry or this bad thing. And I think it also coincides with how our society also sees sex in many ways, right? And so in terms of the new legislation that's come out, the Protection of Communities and Exploited Persons Act, if you really look at it, it's so moralistic. It's very puritanical.
I've read it.
Piece of legislation that's ideologically based in sort of this conservative evangelical kind of
which
viewpoint.
I rail against two types: bullies and hypocrites. My mother was very cognizant of that, and she always said you have to be your own best friend. So I attribute a lot of my survival to my mother. You know, the things she taught me. That you got to be able to be by yourself.
One of the advantages of going online or going to some sort of dating area is that you're already setting yourself up and saying, hey, I'm here for this reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to meet a mate.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else is there for the same reason,
Yeah.
pretty much. But with 3 million individuals within, or more, I guess, within the GTA,
Yeah.
I have a feeling that there's somebody
Yeah,
there just for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Today I'm going to meet a matchmaker. I think that she's going to have a hard time working with someone short because they're going to run into she's going to run into the same perceptions as I did when I was looking. So if she's got some magic, I'll be really happy to find out.
My name is Sophie Papamarco. I'm a matchmaker, and my company is called Friend of a Friend Matchmaking. Well, let me tell you that the 3 things that women are looking for, the 3 things I hear over and over again, it's the same stuff. Kind is number 1, kindness above all else. Funny is number 2, and taller than me is number 3. And those are the 3 things. And it seems like you've got 1 and 2 down, but the height thing is an issue. Do you use the internet at all to meet people?
No.
No?
No. I've looked, I've seen them on average, they're on every day.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there's some great ones like you out there, but there's a ton of scammers out there. You know, and it's very difficult.
Yeah.
I went to this dating service 25 years ago, and I walk into this lady, she's really tall, she's got these stilettos heels on. So she looks at me, takes down a few things, she says, that'll be $1,000. And I said,
This is
"What?"
30 years ago?
And you haven't even found me anybody yet? And then she got really angry and threw me out and said, well, you're only 5 feet, I couldn't help you anyway.
Oh dear, that's
You know,
not super
I
positive.
got tough skin, I'm in real estate, so it doesn't bother me very much. I kind of laughed. That online thing is just it's really a different thing for someone over 60.
Yeah.
Like it's
yeah.
not something, if you grow up with, it's easy to,
Sure.
you know.
I think that you have lived obviously a very interesting life. You're an interesting man. You commit to things. You're creative. You're delightful. Not everybody finds somebody, and
No.
it's not just
No, I am
Yeah.
well prepared for that.
yeah. For men who are much shorter than average in general, I've found that women, their cutoff is sort of 5'6", and even that is pushing it. Why is him being that tall important to you? And they say, well, I like to feel little. I like to feel feminine. I like to wear heels. I'm like, well, do you like heels more than, finding someone amazing? So I tend to negotiate them down a couple of inches, but not much more than that. It's usually like, it doesn't matter how tall they are. It's usually like the 6 feet rule. And I get it. It makes more sense for women who are 5'10", 5'11", and they kind of want to feel sort of at the same height as their partner. But when they're like 5'1", 5'2", and they need somebody 6 feet, I feel a little like, really? Are you sure you know what you want? So lovely meeting you. Should we shake?
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
By the time I got out of high school, I knew, in college for sure, I knew that marriage and that it wasn't going to happen. I learned that because just my experience. I never knew why. I knew why because it was short. Because I didn't know that till the studies came out.
My take on this is that appearances do make a difference initially. As people get to know the person, then things like the variables, race, age, gender, start to, and in this case physical appearance, start to mean less and less. In other words, we live in a very superficial society where appearances do affect us initially. But I have also much more faith in human beings who look beyond it. My name is Marcel Danesi. I'm a professor at the University of Toronto. I teach in the Department of Anthropology, where I teach linguistic anthropology and semiotics. And shortness, short people do still stand out initially, as I said, but not eventually. Not eventually. And then there's the law of regression in statistics. People are going to get short again. Yeah, I would agree with you right now that if you're shorter, a younger man looking for marriage, not as many women may be interested, but there are short women. And you know, people do fall in love and then they forget about what you look like and on and on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't think in my view, that your height was an obstacle to marriage. But sometimes I can understand that people get discouraged if they don't get as much attention and so on.
Yeah.
Knowledge is real power in every sense, because it controls you, as Socrates said, know thyself, and when you do, you can handle the world.
And it's funny how knowledge and information, knowledge, and then you get wisdom, which somebody told me was the ability to predict the future with some degree of certainty.
Well, wisdom to me is knowing how things tend to turn out and being aware of it, and therefore being prepared for it and making no big deal about it.
Or making adjustments.
Or making adjustments, absolutely.
I think that they feel more comfortable around someone taller. They feel more protected. You know, like it's that the jungle kind of thing, you know. Like the female orangutan always hung out with the toughest, biggest, you know, I want protection for my children.
Historically, you know, the giants of the ancient world were considered the warriors, and were probably the ones that were finally, you know, carved in stone through marble and statues. But there was David. And perhaps the most famous statue comes from the Renaissance, which was about David, from Michelangelo. So, you know, why does long hair make people attractive? These features, what semioticians call signifiers, we've inherited from our past. I mean, tribal societies probably wouldn't give a heck about long hair as a feature of attractiveness, but it's stuck. We are more, in my view, products of a historical processes. I'm going to use a word that I don't like to use because I don't agree with the philosophy behind it, but it makes sense here. The word is meme. This is a historical meme. Long hair, height, that is being passed on from generation to generation, which seeks expression in representations and narratives, in painting, in all other kinds of expressive forms, and we inherit it to this day, and then advertising kicks in as another form has inherited this meme and promotes it even more. So that shortness is not in that meme. It's not there.
No. I would have thought differently in retrospect. I probably would have, you know, maybe worked harder at relationships or that. I probably didn't take them that seriously, you know.